Hey guys, this is James.
And this is Denny from TeaDB, and we are on episode
23.
23.
Yep.
Getting older and older each week that we record these.
We are going to be old men soon. Soon we're going to reach our real age.
Yeah.
You guys don't even know what that is.
Terrifying. What are we doing today?
We are brewing something from a Canadian tea company based in Montreal. They have a tea house out there, and it is Camellia Sinensis. So they have a really, really good reputation online. I personally actually haven't ordered from them yet, but like their selection of tea is pretty ridiculous.
And they had reached out to us on Facebook, so if you guys are tea connoisseurs, if you want us to talk to your tea specifically, feel free to hit us up on the site, Facebook, YouTube. Don't go to our houses, but besides that.
Yep. Do not talk to my mom. She will not be very friendly to you. But thanks, Kevin, for reaching out to us. We totally appreciate it, and happy to talk about this tea. We actually brewed it today at work. Really good tea. Really good tea.
Yeah, so this is a roasted Alishan tea. It's aged, so it's $19.99.
Mm-hmm.
With that age, you're going to be spending a little bit more money.
Theoretically,
usually.
If it's been processed well.
And it's dark as darkness can get in a beautiful way.
Yep.
So, what do we got?
Yeah, and on this package it says charcoal, meaning it's been charcoal roasted throughout the years. And like Denny said, if you take a look at this, this has been roasted over and over again. All right. So we have 6 grams of leaf, and this is a 100 milliliter gallon. So we're going to go ahead and pour that guy in.
And this morning when we brewed this, it was a little bit light. And so I think 6 grams is going to really open up that flavor for this brewing. So.
I agree. This is considerably more grams than we used this morning.
Beautiful. Right. So we got basically off of boiling water here. Especially for these roasted oolongs, I find that they just don't perform well under anything but pretty much straight off of boiling. At least in mine. Wow. Ooh, like chocolate coffee notes this time. Interesting. Yeah. And even just the rinse has like a nice kind of almost purple looking color.
Aged oolongs are always very, very interesting and something that I'm trying to get a lot more experience with. Mm-hmm. You can have very bad aged oolong. Especially you have to be careful for even teas such as this that are just like over roasted and then sold as an aged oolong. For beginning tea people or even like people like myself, it can be very difficult to tell what is actually differentiating that roast from the age.
Mm-hmm. Right. And these are things where a well-preserved roasted oolong or aged tea in general is just going to taste good throughout. The taste will change, the flavor profile will change, but the idea of aging tea, besides preserving it, which is one important reason why you want to age your tea, the main idea, thank you, sir, is to enhance the flavor in some way or change in a certain way.
Yep.
Cool. So, how long did you brew that for, roughly?
I'd say about 20 seconds,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's about what they recommend on the site.
Cool.
Cool. All right,
let's give it a taste. I'm really getting coffee notes this time around. I didn't get this morning, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Really strong. I mean, interestingly enough, of the aged oolongs that I have tasted, I often find they have more of a mineral-y taste, and that they lose a little bit of the heightened peak sweetness on the front end. And I'm finding the mineralness of this to be pronounced in a good way.
Definitely. Yeah. This has a lot of mineralness. And I'm actually tasting the roast quite a bit more than I did this morning. And it might be, for some of these aged oolongs, as you steep it out, the roast begins to die out a little bit as you're breaking down the leaves and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves.
I'm
and in
loving
fact,
this.
I'm going to steep this right now for about 15 to 20 seconds again. Hopefully get a little bit more out of it.
And compared to traditional Alishan, where you're drinking it fresh, it's coming just from the spring. This is so different in a great way. In terms of the viscosity, it still has that thinness, Excuse me. But flavor profile, really amazing. I actually haven't tasted something that tastes this much like coffee from tea ever. Yeah. I don't think
it has. It definitely has a little bit more complex profile than your standard roasted oolong. Mm-hmm. I've actually tasted some very bad tea that just tastes straight up like a charcoal roast. Mm-hmm. And you definitely get a little bit of the charcoal roast taste here, mm-hmm. but it definitely has a fair amount more complexity than that tea. And that tea I had, it was from 1990. I won't say which vendor it was from, but I was not particularly impressed. And I've had a couple bad experiences with roasted oolong, especially looking at online marketing places. So you really got to trust your vendor mm-hmm. when you're shopping for these types of teas.
So we're on the third rinse, second steeping, yep. And the color of this the steeping has changed dramatically. So we're getting a much, much deeper red.
Yep. And we're steeping it today. We actually were able to get this red color for up to like the 8 or 9 steepings, which is very impressive. Definitely pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. Considering that I also used not nearly as much leaf. I like this a lot too.
Yeah.
More fruit coming out.
Yeah, sweeter. Yeah. This is reminding me now more of what it tasted like when we had it at breakfast this morning. And the leaves are just midnight black. I mean, they're so dark. But like James is saying, it's not just like I'm getting hit over the head with charcoal here at all. There's a lot of complexity to this tea. That mineraliness and the coffee bitterness was coming up at first. Now there's kind of like a sweeter, sweeter floral aspect. Still a little bit of that mineralness. It's not sweet. Really lovely, actually.
Yeah, it's quite nice. And the way these teas are normally aged, there's a couple different ways. And one way is just to roast the tea, a high fire roast, right when you're roasting the tea. This is pretty common for like Da Hong Pao and stuff like that. Just stick it in a storage container that's not exposed to air and just let it age for years. Mm-hmm. But I actually think this tea was aged where the tea master will re-roast it every few years to kind of refresh the flavor. Just because this displays still just like such a strong black roastiness to it.
And the leaves themselves are not opening up all that much, and that's largely a product of the roast itself too.
Meaning you're going to get some really interesting steeps as we steep this out.
Yeah, this is something where I think that you could sit and session this for an hour at least. As long as you're heating up the water continuously, you're going to really enjoy yourself. Mm-hmm. Something to share with your friends, because this is the kind of thing that you could steep multiple cups many times.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. I've heard some research, and I haven't confirmed this myself, with aged oolong, is that as time goes by, the caffeine from it dissipates away. Huh. So if you are looking for a decaffeinated tea, and I mean, don't trust this as the word of God or anything like that, and wow, look at that color. Right. But you will probably get a little bit less caffeine. And I find that's true if you tend to think of caffeine as the same as bitterness. I'm not getting a ton of bitterness from this tea at all.
Yeah.
So if you think those two are the same, which some people definitely do, then it's not bitter.
This is really interesting. I mean, again, this steep after steep, we're just getting a deeper, darker red.
Yep.
Really beautiful.
Yep. We could definitely steep this much longer. I'd say probably at least 10 to 12 times.
It's really nice. It has a beautiful combination of that kind of front. The front of it gets that mineral charcoal coffee taste, and then it blends itself beautifully into kind of sweet floral.
Yep, and you can get just like a touch of that Alishan high mountain taste, which is just super lovely. I love that taste.
The viscosity of the brew itself is nice and light.
Yep.
I could imagine drinking this almost any time. Morning, evening, afternoon.
Definitely. I think you could drink this right before bedtime. In fact, I'm like not getting a ton of a buzz off of this tea. One of the more common aged teas that we've had is the roasted Tiaguanin.
Right.
And this is actually very, very different from that. That one had like much more of the nutty characteristics to it, a little bit more floral than this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's a I don't want to say muted aspect of the aged oolongs that I've had, but it's like they're hinting at sweetness, but they don't give it to you. And there's a complexity in there that's really fun and interesting. And depending on what you're wanting to drink, I remember being at Floating Leaves and having some aged Tiagonin that it was just hard to place because it was like teasing your palate so much. I think this is a nice balance between clear flavors that are that evolve slowly in your mouth and beautiful. They're beautiful with that kind of complexity that comes with something a little bit more subtle and aged. Really nice.
Yep, quite nice. And definitely do not give up on this tea early on.
Right. It looks like to me, based on the number of times we're brewing this, we might want to heat up the water for our next steeping.
I would say so. It's losing a little bit of its color, and these leaves have not even necessarily unfurled all the way. So I think that's probably a pretty good call for the next steeping.
Cool. Well, this has been a delight to review. Something definitely to get some more of, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is far from the only aged Taiwanese oolong that Camellia Sinensis offers, which is amazing considering this is a company that sells a number of Darjeelings, teas from Japan, just from all over the world.
Cool. So, you know what I'm going to ask. If people want to learn more about this tea and other teas, what should they do?
So you should come to TeaDB.org. We have a lot of great information on Taiwanese oolongs. And we're developing kind of more information specifically on the aged oolongs and that kind of thing. So if that interests you, please check us out. Also, please check out Camellia Sinensis. They are based in Montreal, so if you are in Canada and speak French or English, feel free to check them out.
And they're at camellia-sinensis.com.
Yep. And really, I haven't had a ton of their teas, but I've been totally impressed with what I've had so far. So definitely check them out, and we might be reviewing a few of their teas in the near future.
I think we will.
Yep.
So, until then, enjoy your tea drinking and tea tasting, and we'll catch you guys next time.